A night of terror in the woods. In May 2009, I had just gone through a messy breakup with my girlfriend of almost 3 years. We had moved together from Calgary to Toronto, and the breakup left us awkwardly cohabitating in a city where we hardly knew anyone. The situation was unbearable, so when a buddy from school suggested a weekend camping and fishing trip, I jumped at the chance. My friend grew up in Flamborough, a beautiful area about an hour outside Toronto. It's a landscape of lush forests, sprawling farmland, and meandering rivers. We decided to camp along Grindstone Creek, which was known for its wetlands and supposedly great fishing. We set up camp in what I now think was probably a farmer's field bordered by a dense forest. It might have been trespassing, but at the time, we didn't give it much thought. The evening was idyllic. We fished, swapped stories, and enjoyed some craft beers around a small fire. We roasted hot dogs and potatoes as the stars filled the sky. Around midnight, we decided to call it a night. Sharing a tent, my buddy quickly fell asleep, but I stayed up scrolling through my phone. It must have been close to 1:30 a.m. when I finally drifted off. I woke up to an eerie, high-pitched yipping sound. Groggy and disoriented, it took me a few moments to realize it wasn't a dream. The noise was incessant and odd, resembling a coyote, but stranger somehow. I lay there, listening to it draw closer. Annoyed, I tried to ignore it and distracted myself by playing on my phone. But the sound grew louder, and the unease in my chest grew with it. Eventually, it sounded no more than 10 feet away from the tent. At this point, I was unsettled. I'd seen coyotes before and thought of them as relatively harmless. But what if this one was rabid? Or what if it could smell our food? Anxiety started to take hold, and I nudged my friend awake. He groaned, but the strange noise had woken him up too. "What do we do about it?" I whispered. Neither of us had brought anything to scare off animals, not even a BB gun. After some whispered deliberation, my friend decided to shine a flashlight outside and make some noise to scare the coyote away. He unzipped the tent, stepped out, and aimed the flashlight into the darkness. What happened next froze me in terror. His legs buckled, and he stumbled back into the tent, his face pale and bewildered. "It's not a coyote," he stammered. It's some guy, some weird dude." Normally, I'd assume he was trying to scare me. After all, I'm a known wimp. But the look on his face was unmistakable. Raw fear. The yipping continued, and as I strained my ears, I realized it didn't sound like a coyote at all. My friend urged me to look out the tent flap to confirm what he'd seen. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out, but I leaned forward and peeked outside. There, just a few feet away, stood a man. He was swaying slightly, his movements erratic. He wore a baseball cap, but what caught my attention was his outfit. He was dressed in women's lingerie. The sight sent chills down my spine. His high-pitched noises were still echoing in the night air. I yanked my head back into the tent, my breathing shallow and rapid. My friend and I whispered frantically, trying to decide what to do. We finally agreed to yell at him, hoping to scare him off. "Hey!" my friend shouted. "Get out of here! We're trying to sleep!" The yipping stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. Then we heard footsteps, rapid, heavy footsteps, heading straight for the tent. Panicked, we shouted louder. "Leave us alone! We have phones! We'll call the police!" The footsteps stopped right outside the tent, and for a moment, all we could hear was our own ragged breathing. Then, slowly, the footsteps retreated. The man seemed to be walking back toward the road. We didn't move a muscle until the first light of dawn peeked through the fabric of the tent. Terrified but unwilling to stay a moment longer, we quickly packed up and left. The drive home was quiet. Neither of us wanted to admit how deeply the encounter had shaken us. We chalked it up to some strange, unhinged individual testing the boundaries of his sanity. But the what-ifs haunted me for weeks. What if we'd been two women instead of two men? What if he'd had a weapon? What was he even doing out there, dressed like that, making those noises? I'll never know the answers to those questions, and honestly, I'm grateful. Some things are better left unknown,